Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's Global Daily Conversation around the COVID-19 crisis. I am so grateful to all of you for joining us, for being with us as we talk about various aspects of the crisis and what's happening during the pandemic. Today, we have a very special conversation around brands, trust, and what people think of brands during pandemics and crises. Please tag your friends right now. Please hit share right now on whatever platform you're on so that people can be here. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, not on Instagram, but on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And you can go into any of those platforms and hit share or retweet and make sure that your audience joins us as well. You can also tag specific friends. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at the Stony Brook School of Journalism at Stony Brook University. And I started doing these sessions so that I could feel connected and engaged with the world. Several of you have written in saying how connected you feel and how uplifting these shows are for you. But they're much more uplifting and important to me. And for that, I'm so grateful. You can email me suggestions throughout the show, sree@sree.net, SREE@sree.net, or you can tag me on any of the platforms. We want to help you, and we want to get more suggestions for speakers, for themes, etc. We'll go for about an hour, and you'll have a lot of opportunities to post where you're watching from, to share your comments. Look at this, our friend Neil Parekh is watching from Springfield, Virginia. You know him from my other show, my New York Times read along every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We've been doing for 5 years. We read the New York Times with somebody fun and interesting. And we did that just yesterday with the great Harlan Coben, who many of you know, best-selling author, as well as creator of 3 Netflix series that are on right now, including The Stranger and Safe. And you can go back on my Facebook, on my Twitter, on my LinkedIn and my YouTube to find that conversation. We had a truly global conversation for that. So that was very exciting. And thank you, Neil, for what all you and the entire team does to make that so interesting as a series. So let's see who else is here. Jonathan's always here. He's tuning in from the East Village, south of Union Square, and right downtown in New York. I'm hunkered down in Manhattan. This is the 25th show, 25 straight days of lockdown in Manhattan, and 25 shows and 25 times people like Jonathan have been here. Neil says, looking forward to this discussion, very relevant for his work with United Way Worldwide. They're the world's largest charity, and they're helping so many people who are in need right now. Check out their resources. You'll find it very useful. And look what Jonathan's doing. He's tagging a friend, and I encourage all of you to do that. People are tagging their friends right now. It's an easy way to make sure you're able to see and other people will see our show. And here is a link, as he's put in right into Facebook, of the New York Times read along. So that's fun. And look at Anis Bashir, who's a lawyer, advocate Anis Bashir, watching from Kerala in India, where it is about 2 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. So it's either very late or very early for you, Anis. Thank you for being here. Let's, in addition to everybody's support by watching the show, we're also grateful that we can run advertising and sponsors on the show as well. And right here, you see we have a sponsor message from frontlinefoodtrucks.com. They are doing incredible work at a very complicated time by taking food from food trucks to the frontline healthcare workers at NYU Langone. And their goal is to raise $500,000 so they can expand that to other places inside New York hospitals. As you know, many of the cafeterias are closed. And this is the work of Ben Goldberg, founder and president of the New York Food Truck Association, and his hashtag Frontline Food Trucks initiative. So please go right now to Frontline Food Trucks or take a screenshot or take a photo, and please support their GoFundMe. They have food donated by La Colombe, Sweet Green, and Chobani. And you should know that this ad has been paid for by an anonymous third-party donor who's paying for this show to run that ad. So not a penny is being taken away from frontlinefoodtrucks.com. please go there and support it. It's a great way for you to get to help not just our show by supporting our sponsor, but to much more importantly, help the healthcare workers in New York and also help food truck owners who are, of course, struggling as well. And we do take sponsors, as you can see, and we are showing you that it's a very inexpensive price to have an ad run in this show. Please email me, sree@sree.net, if you would like to support what we're doing. If maybe you have a book you're launching, you have anything that you would like to talk about, or you want to support one of your favorite nonprofits, what a great way to support them the way the other friend of the show did as well. So please think about that. And I want to tell you that for frontlinefoodtrucks.com, the last interesting part I wanted to mention is that Ben's mother, Shelley Goldberg, was the parenting reporter for 25 years at New York One News. So that means she did a fantastic parenting job of raising Ben Goldberg, who is the president of the New York Food Truck Association and whose effort this is right now. So please go right now to frontlinefoodtrucks.com. And if you'd like to support us, just email me, sree@sree.net. All right, enough wind up. We are now ready to bring you our guest speaker. And we also are going to be joined by my dear friend, Linda Bernstein, who has been so active on social with me on our many, many projects. So let me bring both of them on. And there's Linda Bernstein. Hi, Linda. And Linda is Word Whacker on Twitter. You can see her handle right there. And I'm also pleased to bring on Tonia Reis. Hi, Tonia.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tonia is Executive Director of Intellectual Property at Edelman. And Edelman is one of the world's great public relations and communications brands. And she has done a study about brands and trust in the age of pandemics. So first, I just want to ask each of you, how are you? Where are you? And then we'll get to the business's hand. Linda, let's start with you.
I'm fine. I am in upstate New York. It's in a rural area, and where our big thing is that we have no food delivery, and that brands like Walmart and the big box stores aren't delivering anymore to people. They don't have any stock. So, but I'm fine, and I really do have plenty of food. Thank you, Sree.
Okay, thank you. Let's ask Tonia the same question.
Yes, thank you. I'm doing well. I unfortunately, because there wasn't enough happening in March, I added a broken bone in my wrist to the list of things to worry about. But it's my left hand, luckily, and it's nothing complicated. So, but I have to get used to letting other people help me, which is hard for me. And I am currently sequestered at home on the eastern end of Long Island.
Okay.
So I'm out in the fresh air as well.
Well, that's great to have that fresh air. For both of you who may not have seen one of my earlier shows where our guest speaker was Robin Chase, the co-founder of Zipcar. She's one of 4 adults in a 1-bedroom apartment outside Cambridge, because they got caught between apartment moves or house moves. And so if you're feeling tight or congested in any way, nothing compared to one of my previous speakers. Robin is running the new NUMO Alliance, Global Alliance, to think about the future of mobility. But I also want to do a shout out to everyone who's watching, who's in the healthcare profession, and to all healthcare workers everywhere, not just the folks who've taken care of Tonia's hand there, but everybody, because they are frontline workers, and we're so grateful for their service. My wife just came back from going grocery shopping, and there are still grocery clerks. Thank goodness for them. Thank goodness for our first responders, and all of them deserve great applause and gratitude from all of us. So let me tell you a little bit more about Tonia. She is the Executive Director of Intellectual Property at Edelman, a role that includes stewardship of the famed Edelman Trust Barometer, now in its 20th year. The earned branch research into consumer relationships with brands, as well as the development of new research and thought leadership initiatives. She leads the firm's global knowledge agenda across practices, geographies, and clients, and acts as a catalyst for new thinking and discourse on business, communications, and brands in a multi-stakeholder society now under COVID. So let's talk a little bit about Edelman. Just give us a sense of how big it is and what is happening within a company like that today. And then we'll have you walk through this brand new study that you have done. And then Linda will join us for some more questions and comments as we go along. Does this sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. So go ahead.
So yes, I'm sure most of you and most of your viewers are familiar with Edelman. We are the world's largest communications firm, and what that means is that we work with large companies, large organizations, as well as small and mid-sized ones around the world to help manage reputations, help build trust, and most people forget that very often that means starting internally with how do you communicate to your employees. So it's been a very interesting thing to be part of a global organization during this time because, weeks ago we saw our colleagues in China, of course, get hit with the pandemic. Our Beijing and Shanghai offices had to close. And then then we saw our Hong Kong, our Singapore colleagues, others in Asia, and then of course Italy. And so we've got, like many companies, I'm sure, an internal employee social media network where we were seeing videos posted by our CEO in Italy, for instance, every week talking about what it was like to work from home and what she was doing to make the situation easier and more productive and for her teams and less stressful for her teams, really. And then, of course, now here we are, and we've all joined them. And in the meantime, our colleagues in China have gone back to work, So now those of us who are in lockdown are perhaps finding not just inspiration, but also some hope for the rest of the company that has sort of withstood the storm and has found new ways of working. And then eventually, we were on a video call yesterday with one of our colleagues in China dialing in from a Starbucks. And of course, everybody here was very jealous. So it's been interesting to be part of that organization. And it's also been interesting from the standpoint of just seeing some of the kinds of initiatives that our teams are working with clients on. They're in many ways, brands are so powerful and have so much ability to affect change and be creative. And people trust brands to make things happen in many ways, more so than they trust government, really, to make things happen. So consumers feel that they can pressure brands to do the right thing more easily often than they can pressure government. And so many of the brands that we work with have stepped up and taken initiatives such as HP, for instance, that has used its 3D printing technology to help provide much needed medical equipment, or setting a good example, such as some of our fast food clients around, making sure that workers are paid and have sick leave. So it's been an interesting experience, along with the challenges that, of course, we all have.
Sure, thank you. Let's just remind folks that our friend Rose Horowitz, 31 on Twitter, @Rose Horowitz, is tweeting live. So you'll want to make sure that you're seeing her content over on Twitter. We're using the hashtag Sree COVID-19 call. We're going to correct that on the screen. It's COVID-19 call. Please do share, and I want to hear your thoughts as well. And we want to make sure everybody who's watching, please tag a friend. Please hit share right now so that people from around the world can join us. Paula's watching from Tallahassee, Florida, and we also have some questions coming in from Australia. So we're going to gather some questions, but in the meantime, you have some quick slides that you're going to show us. So let's start with that.
Sure. Yes, so these slides that we're going to be sharing are from a study that we conducted across 10 countries. And it's very recent data. And what we wanted to do is go and find out what is it that people expect from brands, right? We know from our previous research that brand trust is more important than ever before. We did an early COVID flash poll where we saw very clearly that people have high expectations for their employers. in terms of protecting employees, sharing information. So in that context, right, what is it that people want from brands? Let me dive right into the research itself, right? 12 markets actually where we did this survey. And what I'd like to do is share with you initially just sort of the 5 key expectations that people have for business and for brands, right? Because overwhelmingly, and I was actually stunned at how high some of these numbers are, 62% our country will not make it through the crisis without brands playing a critical role. And the majority globally saying that brands and companies are responding more quickly and effectively to the pandemic than the government. So what is it that people want brands to do? Well, do the right thing, right? 33%, I have already stopped using a brand that was not acting appropriately. And you can see that range is much higher in countries that were earlier in the study. This is research that was in the field now a week ago. Okay, so what are the specific areas, the specific roles we want brands to play? Well, we've summed them here on the slide. This is a time that we need solutions, not selling. First and foremost, and I'm going to go through 5 things here. Protect employees at all costs.
Can we just say it again so that everyone's clear? They don't want selling.
They want solutions.
Solutions, not selling, correct.
That's
so
right.
We need to emphasize that. Terrific.
And
Thank you.
solutions that must be very relevant to what is happening with people today, right? And so that starts in terms of the responsibility for brands. Even consumers believe overwhelmingly that brands first and foremost have to protect their employees, right? So even if this means you're going to take a hit, it is essential for brands to do this to earn and keep my trust, 52%, and another 38%. I really hope brands will do this. And you can see how consistently this expectation is around the world. Keep your employees safe. It is just not worth it to put put profits ahead of people. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2, can you produce products and deliver services that can help? Can you shift your supply chains? Can you shift your production lines and your manufacturing to help produce the kinds of products that are so needed now? Can you make them available to those who are most vulnerable and at risk, to the health workers who are such heroes today at reduced and discounted prices? And frankly, unless the products are not designed to help me with my pandemic challenges, I'm just not interested in any other new product introductions or innovations, right? So what are you doing to help and what are you doing to keep it relevant? Number 3, there are gaps that need to be filled, right? So what are you doing as a brand to bring your resources and your brand power to bear to be that safety net, to fill the gaps in the response, and to partner with government to address the crisis? The next 2 have to do with information. Amazingly, a big proportion see brands as being part of the information flow. Be a reliable news source, keep people informed about what's being done to stop this virus, and give me information I can trust. And in addition to giving me information, I also want you to be an educator, right? Run that public service announcement. Stop your advertising and shift those dollars to helping us understand why it's so important to stay at home, what we can do to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And finally, and this is where I think brands really have an opportunity to use their power for bringing people together to facilitate a sense of community, offer social support to people, connect us, and help us stay emotionally close. So 5 important roles that people want brands to play that we uncovered in the study, and we were just stunned at how important these, how high these response numbers are. We rarely see numbers this consistently high.
And so, thank you. That was enlightening. I'd already flipped through them, but to hear you describe them is really important and very effective. Talk about the countries, how you selected them, and what was the methodology in which you were able to do this?
Oh, sure. Well, so the 12 countries we chose we wanted to make sure that we had a representative sample around the world. Obviously, we wanted to talk to people in countries that were affected by the virus and the pandemic, and who were kind of at different stages, so that we could see, how are people doing in those countries that were affected earlier, and that are into sort of the recovery cycle. How are people feeling in countries that are just dealing with this for the first time? So we wanted to have a representative mix geographically, but also in terms of where they were in their experience of this virus.
And in terms of the speed with which you did this is very impressive.
Thank you. I've told the team that this is what we've been training for, right? So we, in addition to the annual Trust Barometer, which is a very large 28 country global survey, that we really spend all years working on and preparing for, and then doing the analysis. We also do, over the course of the year, quite a few supplementary surveys on different topics across different geographies and sectors. And some of those over the years have become very timely, related to certain news events and certain follow-ups to those things. So the team has gotten quite good at both working closely together. Everyone knows their role. And we just jumped into action. Our CEO, Richard Edelman, has been incredible in terms of he's just very dynamic and knows how urgently people are looking for answers, looking for information, and how much they're relying on their employer, right, to help them navigate the uncertainty of this time, right? And those employers are coming to us for advice and guidance. So it was just important that we got some information out very quickly.
Let's see some of the comments coming in. Kalpana's watching from Bleary, California.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
People are tagging their friends, which is great. Share what you're thinking about. Tell us how you're feeling. We love seeing people just typing in the comments and talking. We are live on two Facebook channels. We're on my public Facebook profile, but also on my closed Facebook group called Sree's Advanced Social, Sree''S Advanced Social. So if you're watching on that, thank you. You won't be able to share it out of that because it's closed, but anybody's welcome to join that group, or you can just go onto my main Facebook profile and share from there. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. And the best way to be alerted about shows that I'm doing is to follow me and subscribe to me on YouTube so that you can see it. So I'm going to bring in Linda, who I'm sure has been thinking about this because she's seen the study already, and she will also have some questions. So folks, this is our friend Linda Bernstein. She's at WordWhacker on Twitter. So please go ahead, Linda. And what are your responses to what you just saw?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting. I know Tonia from social media, so for a long time, and so it's really nice to see Tonia, see you doing this, and to see the Edelman study here. And I think that this is like a really, in a way, a crucial time for brands, and I think it's really fascinating about the way people are turning to brands for information. When have you ever witnessed anything like this before, where brands have been so important to people out there, to consumers, for information?
That's a great question. We first identified a phenomenon about 3 years ago, in 2016, that we named the belief-driven buyer, right? And these are people who will change their buying behavior. They will, buy new brands. They will be more loyal. They will pay a premium. They will avoid brands potentially, right? Based on that brand taking a stand or expressing its values through some behavior. And when we first measured this phenomenon among consumers, it was about 50% of all consumers. It was initially primarily, as you would expect, younger consumers, millennials, people with a little bit more disposable income, right, who had the luxury of making those types of choices. But it was really about something that we called brand democracy, right? I believe that I can influence brand behavior, and that ability to influence brand behavior gives me a great deal of power and amplifies my voice. So my wallet, more so than my vote that I get to cast every 4 years at the ballot box, my wallet becomes my vote, right? And that stands for what I believe in. So this was around 2016 that we first identified this group. From 2016 to 17, in 1 year, we saw that percentage of consumers who behave in that way increase from 50% to about 67% of all consumers. So belief-driven buying has gone mainstream. It is now across all demographics. It's across all geographies. Even older consumers are now the majority, about 60% of them say, yes, I would change my buying behavior based on a brand stand or failure to take a stand on an issue. So I am frankly not that surprised that at this moment of crisis, we are turning to brands. When you think about how much power a brand has to make change happen, to change supply chains, to change public opinion even, right? To help educate people, to make something fun, to give us platforms to talk to each other. Brands just have so much power to change the world, and they have very innovative and creative solutions that they can bring to the table, more so even than perhaps government or more traditional institutions.
Folks, I'm just going to step in here to remind people to tell us where they're watching from, to ask their questions. We've got lots of great comments coming in. Here's Daryl. He's tuning in from Richmond Hill in Queens, where the men are handsome, the women are pretty, and the kids are all above average. So that's sounds
like a great place.
Yes, it is. And Trevor says, Trevor Butterworth, a great follow on Twitter. He says, I've been reading a lot about the rise of distributed trust as opposed to hierarchical trust. Are you seeing this in your overall trust barometer and or around coronavirus?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Trevor. It's over the years, we absolutely have tracked that shift from hierarchical, vertical trust in institutions and authorities to a much more, initially we talked about it as a horizontal trust, right? The rise of peers is something that the Trust Barometer first tracked in 2006. We then saw, we asked a question about credibility that we've tracked for a long time, where a person like myself, right, so my peer voices, kept growing in credibility relative to academic experts, technical experts, peaking about 3 years ago when a person like myself became as credible, tied for number one, as technical and academic experts, with apologies to Sree and others on this call. What was interesting is that when fake news became a phenomenon that started affecting, people's confidence in information, we did see a bit of a decline in the credibility of peers, right, and a return to experts. But certainly the fundamental nature of trust, which previously was defined as, I trust people who have more information than I do, and typically that's a figure of authority, is no longer true. Right. And there's so many other markers of trust beyond, an institutional credibility or credentials or titles that people today in our, always on hyper connected era are looking for. Right. And so transparency above all, right. The ability to fact check and call out information from others. Those things, technology writ large, I think is fundamentally changing the way that people trust. There's no question.
Thank you. Let's see, Linda, do you have a question or a comment?
Well, I think that judging from my students and what they always tell me, they're real believers in the idea that they can influence through social media, and they think that they feel that they have a lot of power, which is a terrific thing, to feel empowered in that way, and that they can if there's a brand that they don't like, that they tweet about it, and that it's going to have some effect. And that's something that the effect of social, I mean, the trust of social is something you bring up later in the report. And so I'd like to ask you a question later on when you get to that. Tonia?
Yep, sure thing. It's a conundrum because social media as a platform is not trusted today by, and very, very highly distrusted, especially in the West. But yet we continue to rely on it for news and information, and we trust our friends and regular people, friends and family, to tell us the truth. So, we trust the messenger, but not really the platform. And so I'm not sure what that does for trust in the message. But I do think over the last couple of years, people have become much more careful about what they believe and share on social media than they were, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, thank you. I want to, speaking of brands, I want to thank Tim Sohn, who was the first person to sponsor this show. They say that you never forget who sponsored your first show. As Bruce Springsteen says, he never forgets who paid him $5 to play music professionally. So I want to thank Tim for supporting us. And he's also watching the show and encouraging, I know, other people to also sponsor the show. So here's a comment that's come in from Kalpana, who's asking about how tough times are right now. How can people still seek out brands? Like, I can't get my favorite toilet tissue, right? Anything will do now. I'm not seeking out my favorite brands right now in some cases.
That may be true. When you're looking at an empty shelf in the store, you're going to buy whatever you can, right? But I'll tell you this, there are some brands that are taking action, stepping up in ways that people will not forget. Right? Good, bad, or indifferent. And, we're already seeing the impact on buying with, I think it was about 30 or so percent who said, I've bought a new brand, right? Because of some amazing thing that they did or that I heard them doing. So I'm sure we've all heard about some of the alcohol companies who have quickly converted their operations to produce hand sanitizer. Others who have quickly stepped up in, whether it be maybe your favorite neighborhood store that has taken special precautions or created special hours for seniors or people who are vulnerable to safely come in and access their store, or maybe adding delivery, or even the fact that we have, restaurants in my neighborhood who are doing what they can to keep their employees on and, asking us to help support them. Right. So when I see a brand doing what it can to do the right thing, providing free transportation, perhaps to doctors and healthcare workers, those are things that I'm going to remember when I can go back and patronize those stores and those restaurants again in the future.
And that may be some time away, unfortunately, of course, and we don't know. Here's a comment from El Cerrito, California. Saheli says, drilling down into the intersection of belief-driven buyers and the emphasis on treating employees well, are we seeing any payoff for brands being more transparent about compensation philosophy?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things, and maybe I should share a few slides from the next section of the report.
Sure.
One of the things that people absolutely want to hear about is, so tell us what you're doing, right? Tell us how you are helping not just consumers, but even your workers. But I think I'm hoping that this information is going to be helpful really for anyone who's communicating in any way during this time, which is that we have to be more sensitive than we ever have been, not only to communicate with factual information, but to put out information that is comes from a place of compassion for the experience that people are having, and also understands sort of the emotion and what it is that people are feeling right now. So what are some of the expectations, right? I want to know what you are doing to support and protect not just customers, but also your employees. Right. So tell me what you're doing to keep them safe, but also tell me what you're doing about their health care. Or if you are forced to furlough workers or even eliminate jobs, What are you doing to help them find other work in industries that are currently hiring and maybe understaffed? What are some things that you're doing as a brand to change how you're operating to give me access to products and services, maybe even when there are shortages, right? So those of us who've been on Amazon, there's all kinds of information about how the pandemic is affecting its operations and what types of products they're prioritizing and how they're making those decisions, right? What are the changes to your operations? What I thought was fascinating, because we are all being flooded right now by emails from every brand I've ever given my email address to. And on the whole, when asked, are those messages comforting and reassuring, or is it just adding to your anxiety and concern? And you can see in every country, by far, people are finding those messages far more comforting and reassuring than, anxious making. So what we're doing is working. What people also are asking for is, tell us that you care, right? Brands should be issuing statements of empathy and support for those who are most affected, including those on the front line, right? The healthcare workers, the emergency support, as well as people who are ill. And keep your messages, and this is so important, right? We said at the top, focus on solutions, not selling. If you are going to be running advertising, focus them on how you can help, right? How can your products and services help people deal with challenges related to being isolated, being concerned, being aware, and only talk about your products in ways that show that you're aware of the crisis and the impact it's having. This is not a good time to run ads showing people in a bar having a great time. But maybe find other ways that you can gather people in a safe way to have a good time. Spokespeople, of course, the most trusted spokespeople right now are scientists, doctors, and health authorities, right? So feature those voices more so than, celebrities or big time influencers. And be very careful about humor, tone, right? Not necessarily a good idea to be telling jokes or running escapist advertising. Although if you look at the geographic data here, it's interesting that people in China, for instance, actually said, well, no, we're ready for some humor and entertainment, right? It's time to break the serious tone. We are not going to look at this whole eye chart, but this data is posted online, and we did produce the geographic differences in terms of platforms, because while we saw a lot of similarity in what people want brands to focus on, the role they want them to play, how you show up is where the differences are, right? So make sure you understand where your customers are. If they're more on social media, we're more looking at traditional email media as well. But traditional emails and owned channels tend to come to the top. But what is fascinating to the conversation, Linda, that we had a moment ago about social media, we're all there, right? We're all on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, but we're not necessarily ready to believe information that is shared in those places. So we ask people to tell us, how many times do you have to see a piece of information repeated in each platform before you believe it? And traditional media, both national and local, as well as owned, right? 59% for brands' websites tend to be believed most readily. So that's those are the findings from a communications and platform perspective. Want to pause and see if I can answer any questions on this section.
Sure. Just before that, let me just remind people, if you've just joined us, this is Tonia Reis. Tonia is with Edelman Public Relations. Edelman, the worldwide company, at Edelman PR is the Twitter handle. She's Tonia_RIES on Twitter. Please do follow her. And she's talking about the big Edelman study on brand trust in the age of pandemics. And she's also executive director of intellectual property at Edelman. So she oversees the Trust Barometer and so many of the other things Edelman is known for. And we're also joined by Linda Bernstein, who is at Wordwhacker on Twitter, and I'm at Sree on Twitter and Sreeneton YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you know when we're live. We have about 20 minutes of Tonia's time, so we want to get as many questions in as possible, and people are saying hi to each other and posting comments. And look at this. Doug says humor is risky. What do you think about that?
Well, when I try it, it's always risky. I never know who I'm going to offend and piss off.
We also have Nita says, great show, having late lunch in backyard and enjoying the informative show. So that's very nice and excellent and very useful information, says another one of our viewers. So thank you so much, Tonia. You're helping people, whether they're lunching in their backyards or getting ready for dinner, because we're all over the world right now.
That's great. I'm glad this is useful.
Yeah. Linda, any questions or thoughts from your side?
Well, I'd like to go back for a second to the whole social media trust barometer information that you came up with, because it seems to me that we're either doing, because the numbers were so relatively low compared to trust in other information from brands, it seems to me that either brands are doing, either the world at large is doing a very good job at making people be more cautious about what they trust, or somebody's doing a very bad job to like stop a channel of communication. Do you think, what could brands be doing on social that would make people trust them? And maybe you have to go to the second or third time in order to be trusted, but do you see anything that any way social media that brands could make more of their social media?
Oh, that's a terrific question. First of all, I think if you're going to be on social media, right, that before you even open your social media account, make sure that you've got your own information channels and sources ready to go and populated with trustworthy information, right? So do you have your website? Do you have your email newsletter, right? Do you have the channels that you truly can control, so you have a place to bring people back to if things are misconstrued or misinformation is shared about you on social media? So that's number one, because owned media is very credible, and we've seen that rise as an information source in terms of how much people trust it over the years, to where owned media is far, far more trusted than social media is, right? So start with your own channels and make sure those are in good orders. Then when you do go on social media, right, there's a couple of things. First of all, what is the role that social media is playing in the conversation, right? Are you using it really for sharing information, or are you using it to amplify and to engage in conversation? And then when you're doing that, the third element that I would put at the top is to really think about your tone and whether that tone is one that really is going to come across as authentic and believable, right? Go ahead, Sree.
Yeah, I was just going to read. There's so many comments coming, and we want to get them in while we still have you. Maybe stepping back from COVID-19 to what you've been seeing the last few years, have you seen any evidence the new benefit corporations are getting a payoff in terms of trust about values? And also, please explain the benefit corporations, because it's not the same around the world.
When you say the benefit, you mean the benefits to corporations?
No, I think she's talking about the companies that are double bottom line and are looking to be that they're saying that they're more than just shareholder value, more than just profits.
Yeah, that is a great question, right? Because we truly are living now in an age where multi-stakeholder capitalism is something that businesses are signing on to left and right? We saw the Business Roundtable announcement last year. We've seen multiple announcements around the world of companies making pledges around the environment and other things. And we asked a question in this year's Trust Barometer, the January report. For the first time, we asked consumers or people in general, which which of the following stakeholders is most important to a company's long-term success, right? And of the 4 choices we gave, customers, employees, the local community in which the business operates, and shareholders, right, people who own the company, it was something like 78 to 12, if I'm doing the math right, or 22. It was by 8 to 2. People chose other stakeholders over shareholders, right? And tied for first place were employees and customers. What's interesting, though, is that while people have a much broader definition of who a company should be serving than just its owners, they also don't think you need to do this as a nonprofit, right? Because overwhelmingly, people believe that it is possible for you to both do well and do the right thing, right? That to both make a profit and also serve the needs of the local community. So it's not an either or, it's a question of how do you serve all of these stakeholders. The number one trust building action for years now has always been how well you treat your employees, right? So all types of consumers and stakeholders have always looked at business and said, you know what, I'm going to trust you not based on how much money you're making or even how well you treat me as a customer. My biggest number one indicator of whether I can trust you as a company is whether you're treating your employees well, right? So this notion of companies needing to serve their stakeholders before they can serve their shareholders is something I think that has been around for quite a while and that companies really are beginning to understand how to truly action on.
Sure. Let's read some of the comments. Stefan says, so wonderful to be here. Marilyn says, I believe it will take time to see which brands are supportive and transparent through the crisis. And Saheli has posted a link to benefit corporations so people can all learn about them. And Tim says, if anybody has questions about live streaming in these crazy times, please let me know. And please do check out his SOHN, S-O-H-N, socialmediasolutions.com, our very first sponsor. So thank you, Tim. Let's keep going and get some more comments in here from folks. We have just a few minutes left. I have a question for you. You mentioned the business roundtable, which had these CEOs that said in a way, it was a repudiation of the last 40 years of American capitalism. But when that happened, I said it'd be great if it takes hold. And I don't think it took hold immediately. And then the crisis has happened. So how optimistic are you that people can go back to that when the stock market has fallen so much, when there is 20% unemployment? All of that seems to me like not the right time for trying to change the underlying principles of American capitalism.
Oh, I'm going to hesitate to play future prediction. But I will tell you one thing I am sure about. I'm pretty sure that our new normal, that 1 year from now, 18 months from now, whenever we get to the other end of this curve, things are going to look a lot different, right? Because what we're witnessing now, right, you've got, just look at the numbers in the U.S. alone, right? We are now at 10 million unemployment claims that have been filed in the last 2 weeks. We've got trillions of dollars already committed in multiple federal, packages, rescue packages, and really that were designed to address the current emergency. And we haven't even started talking about what is government and business going to do to restart the economy by the time we're done. So we are going to be seeing, kind of a very large debate, I think, about what is the role of government, what is the role of business, and how much relative power is government going to need to have to make sure that we're getting the right materials and needed equipment to the right place at the right time. How much data are we going to need to collect, right, in order to be able to adequately assess the situation and address and allow certain portions of the population to be able to go back to work safely while maybe others who are more vulnerable stay in quarantine. So we're going to have some very fundamental questions that need to be addressed around privacy, the reach and power that various institutions have relative to each other. And I will tell you that if you're looking down the road and you are running a business or you are managing a brand, this is a moment that I think can potentially make or break how people will see your brand and your contribution for many, many years to come. So actions and decisions that you take now, I think, are going to have a long-term impact on your brand and on your reputation for sure.
Thank you. Just a reminder that if you're watching inside a Facebook group, please make sure you go to streamyard.com/Facebook so that we can see your photo when we discuss your questions and show you your questions. So here's something that's come in from our friend Stefan, who says, thanks for sharing the barometer, lots of insights. How do you see the challenge of do well and do good in the near future of recovery phase when companies will have to focus on their own survival?
Well, I think that's the question that a lot of business leaders are asking themselves right now is, what is the appropriate trade-off between protecting my business's ability to survive while, balancing that against how much can I contribute? Honestly, I think right now, the best answer is for you as a business to do and contribute as much as you can, right? And obviously the answer to what is possible for you to do and contribute is going to be very different if you're a Unilever or a Walmart than if you are a small business in a local community, that is being hit very seriously and more immediately. But frankly, all of us have an opportunity right now to think about what are the resources that we have as individuals, as business, as organizations, and how do we need to redeploy those resources so that we're, first of all, protecting the safety and health of our community, and then secondly, finding perhaps new and more interesting, more creative ways for all of us as a community, as a society, to work together and deliver new types of products and services, right? Now is a time for help, and it's also a time for innovation and new solutions.
I think that's a great way to think about time for innovations and new solutions. And Stefan says, a defining moment for brands to do the right thing. And then Linda, another Linda, so we've got overload of Lindas here for a second. Linda Lawrence says, I hope there's time to take my question. I work for a highly trusted brand. Any opinion on whether it's okay to check how we're doing in terms of brand trust these days? We have online insight community and could feel something quickly and easily, but not sure it's appropriate now. What a great question, Linda. And so Tonia, over to you.
I don't think you can check in with people often enough. I would urge you to absolutely, if you have the resources to do a quick survey and a touch base and take the pulse among your stakeholders, absolutely do that. But when you're crafting that questionnaire, be sure to also think about casting it in the context of what people are living through today, right? So don't make it just about you, but it's an opportunity for you to also find out what is it that their expectations are for how your brand can show up today and be of service to them.
Linda had another question, which was, how do we talk to our B2B as well as B2C customers at this time? Is there a difference in the way you should be operating?
I'm a big believer that there's not much of a difference between B2B and B2C. Both are people. Right.
There's a person at the other end is what I like to say of the second B, right? The B2B also has a person. And that's why things like LinkedIn and other tools are so important, because there are people at the other end.
Absolutely. And, your suppliers, your B2B connections, maybe are dealing with different types of challenges than if you're a B2C brand, right? They are more likely to be people who, like the three of us, have the privilege of working from home, of continuing their job, of having access to technology. So are there ways that you can help them not only with work-related challenges and disruptions to, say, a supply chain, but are there also ways that you can help them professionally to be supportive and be a little bit more of a reassuring and calming voice, as well as give them access to educational resources that they may need to help their business, right? Because maybe you're dealing with a group of suppliers who are small businesses themselves, right? So how can you partner? How can you create relationships in that network so that people can support each other and support each other's businesses?
All right, very quick questions and answers. I'm sharing breakfast with my 3 boys here in Australia. I advise my career coaching clients to watch companies as they react to this pandemic. Which companies are taking action or exhibiting compassion? Which ones are doing neither? Which should they pursue to work because of the way they reacted? Which ones are trustworthy for acting in alignment to their missions and values? My question is, how can job candidates or consumers make that clear? That these are your values. How do you do that, especially if you're a job candidate?
So if you're a job candidate applying for these companies or to these companies, I'm not sure I quite understand the question.
You can interpret it any way you like. It doesn't matter.
Well, let me say this, right? That, how you show up right now is going to be remembered, right? And so, let's go back to what our research found. It is a time right now to focus on solutions, right? And how can you serve and help other people that you're working with, right? Whether that be job candidates who are applying, or whether that's how you show up as a potential employer. It's so important to be sensitive to the needs that people have right now and to the tone that you're sending out there. And it's also in time to remember that all of us are people that are dealing with these challenges in our own way, right? So you may have kids at home that suddenly show up on your conference call. Guess what? It's a great opportunity to connect with your clients and your colleagues in a whole new level and allow them to share some of those personal moments that they're dealing with. One of my favorite things that I saw in the news today that I thought just exhibited such leadership was actually a politician. And one of my favorite politicians these days, Jacinda Ardern, from the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who announced in a press conference that she has declared both the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy to be essential workers. And asked for patience, of course, given that there are travel restrictions, that the Easter Bunny might not make it to every home, and even offered some suggestions for how kids could help the Easter Bunny create, eggs in their home and so on in case he couldn't make it. So I just thought it was such a great example of a leader, and we can do this in any position as leadership, showing some of that humanity and sensitivity for what it is that people are going through.
So look at this. Saheli says, in my paused career as an executive recruiter, candidates were already asking me about COVID-19 employee policies as of just 2 weeks ago. I was relieved to be able to give them reassuring answers. So I think that's something people are going to really seek out, are companies that are more flexible, are more understanding. I think a lot of that's going to be true. Daryl says, action speaks louder than words, especially when it relates to company image. So what you do right now will define your image for years to come. I think that's great advice. And Stefan says, there's such a horrible moment in time, overwhelming several times throughout the day and night, leaving many in tears. But I do sincerely believe that out of all this tragedy will come more togetherness. Brands who have true concern for society at large will shine through. I think those are great sentiments. And as we bring Linda back here and we get ready for Tonia to get back to her day, are you just going kind of one Zoom call to another? Is that what it is?
Yes, pretty much. I am starting to work hard to try to take short breaks in between each one. So a lot of times if I'm able to do that, and this is a tip I'm sharing with people now, because when I first started this work from home life, it was pretty exhausting. We're so fortunate that we have the internet and technology to keep us connected. But when you're going from one meeting to the next and you're tied to your computer, there's not much time to go get that cup of coffee. So make sure you build your breaks into your day for sure. And yes, I'll be going into another call right after this.
Linda, do you want to say any final thoughts before we ask Tonia for her final thoughts?
I just think this was a fascinating study, and actually looking at the data on things that have been going on in my own mind about what I'm thinking about brands. And I think it gives us a lot of future thought too. So thank you for the conversation, Tonia. It's so good to know that you guys at Edelman did this and that you're disseminating it so well. I think that it's really insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other Linda also says, fabulous session. Thank you so much. Stay safe and be well. And so Tonia, I'll let you go after giving us a final thought or two. And also, how do you stay so positive? Because you strike me as a positive person.
I think there's a lot to be positive about in life. So thank you. I take walks and I do yoga and stay in touch with my friends. So those are my little 3 secrets. They're not too complicated. I just want to say thank you so much for this platform and this time and for the interest. I love having conversations like this and getting all these great questions and comments from people. Please keep those coming. You see my Twitter handle there. Anyone who's got any additional thoughts or questions, I'm happy to take them online. And we're always working on the next survey. So if there are questions we haven't answered, we'll put them in the next one.
And we should also point out where people can find the actual brand study, the brand trust study on edelman.com, I presume.
Yes, absolutely. If you go to edelman.com, there's a link right there on the homepage, front and center, to all of our COVID-related assets.
And before you go, speaking of Edelman, there is our friend Renee. I mean, we had caught her mid-bite at her home. But Renee, thank you for arranging this. It's great to. You told me Tonia would be amazing, and she's absolutely been amazing.
Thank you, Sree and Linda, for inviting my great colleague, Tonia Reis, on your show. She is the executive director of all our trust assets, and she's working with Richard on developing the next trust survey, which will be out the 1st of May. So we'll be back in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should just point out that I have deep connections to the Edelman name because Renee went to Columbia Journalism School where I went, but her dad and her brother Richard's dad, Daniel Edelman, who founded Edelman worldwide, was a graduate of the class of 37 at Columbia, and the plaza at Columbia Journalism School is named after Daniel. And his mother, his wife, and Renee's mom, Ruth, came out to open the plaza. It was a wonderful moment to see that Edelman legacy kind of cemented literally into the journalism school and its fabric.
Thank you, Sree. We at Edelman, we're very, journalism is very important to us, and we want to support, daily journalism, local journalism, and all new forms of journalism, as you're doing today across platforms. So thank you very much for what you and Linda and your team are doing.
Thank you. And Jonathan says it's jam-packed with statistical goodies, which is a good thing to be. And Arlene says, thank you, Tonia. I'll send you my question on Twitter. And there's a lot more comments coming. So we're going to let Tonia go. And Renee and Linda, thank you very much. I have some housekeeping and my usual goodbyes to say to people. But thank you very much. And we hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Follow them all. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, Linda. Bye, Renee. Bye, Sree. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, so that was fun to have them there. A great group of people. Please follow Tonia Reis on Twitter and at Edelman PR on Twitter as well. Folks, what a great show. And thank you so much for being here with us, for supporting what I'm doing. I want to thank our sponsor, and we have a great sponsor, only our second sponsor that we've ever had. And we're so grateful that we can showcase something really meaningful. FrontlineFoodTrucks.com. Donate today. If you like my show, make a donation. An anonymous donor has funded the ad here. So first of all, if you are interested in sponsoring this show, just email me, sree@sree.net. But look at this organization. The New York Food Truck Association is is running food to frontline workers in hospitals at New York, NYU, Langone, and others. They need to raise a lot of money, and let's help them. Please make a donation. Food is coming from La Colombe, from Sweet Green, from Chobani, and an anonymous third-party donor paid for this ad so that you don't lose any money from frontlinefoodtrucks.com into this program. So if you can, please make a donation. If you like the show today, make a $5 donation, $10, $100. It will make a difference, and it'll go right to the folks who need it, the frontline workers who we salute. Instead of just applauding them at 7 p.m., go make a donation at frontlinefoodtrucks.com. And I also want to remind all of you that you can sponsor this show. Look how reasonable the prices are. You can just email me, I'll send you this, or you can take a photograph or a screenshot. $75 for so many mentions and so much of an opportunity for you to get your story in front of interesting, fascinating people, also influential people, including journalists. So many stories have been done about this work, including this story right here, very kind story from Jennifer Doherty and the West Side Spirit about hosting the coronavirus conversation, about the work that we're doing. I now have, because of all of you, I now have 2 shows. I have this show every day at a different time, but a daily COVID-19 show, and a show on WBAI radio in New York, 99.5 FM, progressive radio. On Saturdays from noon to 2, I'm doing a show that's called the COVID-19, Coping with COVID-19, the helpful, hopeful show. We're hopeful and helpful, but not unrealistically hopeful in that show. It's a call-in show, and we love having people come in. And you can check out our posts with WBAI Sree is the hashtag there. And I just want to show you that people are tweeting and sharing our content. Look at our very complicated hashtag that we have, Sree COVID-19 call. It has had almost 1,000 tweets. You can see that this was before today. And we've reached 5 million people with the hashtag and 20 million impressions. So the work we do matters. We've had more than 225,000 people watch the show already, 25 straight days that we have been doing this show. And I'm doing it because I want to connect with the world. I want to help as many people as I can. So many people are posting beautiful things about what the show means to them, but I keep saying it means much more to me. And I'm so grateful to everyone who's watching, who is supporting us. Please email me, sree@sree.net, with feedback, with suggestions, with somebody who'd like to sponsor. Maybe you want to sponsor your favorite charity, and for such little money, you can get this out there. Why do I need any money at all? 1, to justify my time. 2, so that I can bring you better production values. If you've seen the New York Times read-along, such as the one we did yesterday with the great Harlan Coben, we have an entire team that produces the show. We're 4 people. We have sponsors there, so we're able to support and pay for not a lot of money, but at least something. We need to value the people who work with us. Go back and watch that Harlan Coben show on YouTube. That's the best thing you can do, is subscribe to my YouTube channel. Once you do that, you'll know when I'm live and you'll get alerts right away. So I want to say thank you to all. And by the way, I'm wearing, if you may have noticed, my pineapple t-shirt. And the reason, pineapple shirt, the reason I'm doing that is I was supposed to be in Puerto Rico, which is like my second home, where we've been going for 20 years, to do some workshops for nonprofits that were hit by Hurricane Maria. And that workshop was today. I couldn't go, obviously, so we decided to run it anyway. And we did it all online. And we had 60 nonprofits gathered around the island in their homes. And imagine the plight in Puerto Rico, where so many people don't have the internet. So homeschooling is not that easy. Here we are complaining about homeschooling, but in many parts of the world, that's not even possible. And they're still recovering from the earthquakes. They're also recovering from Hurricane Maria. And so I am so grateful to have had that opportunity. So I wore a pineapple shirt, and I also wanted to wear my my Puerto Rico beanie here. but I did not do that. But just a shout out to Puerto Rico. And if anybody wants to talk Puerto Rico after this is all over, I need to go get some beach time there. And you know that they're so locked down that they don't even allow people on the beaches in Puerto Rico. Even social distancing is not allowed, which is crazy to think about. But my heart is always there with the people of Puerto Rico. I want to just show you some of the comments. Arlene says, an hour has gone by already. Linda says, great call. Stefan says, great call. Rose says, try repeating the hashtag 10 times in a row. Yes, very hard. Imagine how many impressions we'd had if we had had a better hashtag. And then these 3 COVID-19 calls are so helpful. They feed my news need and keep my mind at ease. Thank you. Clara has been on our show twice from Italy, from Turin. Write to her, ask her about life as a journalist and a mother and a family member in Turin right now in Italy with everything that's going on there. And just so great to see all these comments. I am so grateful to everybody for watching. I have a hashtag, which is hashtag Sreetaly, Sreetaly. I've done so many speaking media tours there, been a visiting professor. I miss Italy very, very much. Rose says, love that, Clara, juggling in Turin, which is great. And Neil has posted a link to the Harlan Coben show, which had so many people tune in because he's such a rock star. And Renee is reminding us, hashtag Sree COVID-19 call, hashtag Sree COVID-19 call. All right, folks, thank you very much. Please email me. Oh, one of my friends, Nadine, is tuning in. Nadine is the head of drawings and prints at the Met Museum. And by the way, when I left the Met, my friends there gave me all these Met buttons, which ended about 7 years ago, but they gave me a stash of buttons, and I've been giving them away to my friends as they visit our house. Nadine and everybody at the Met, I'm thinking of you. It's great, Nadine, all the work the curators did and our digital department and everybody worked together in order to be able to get the Met online in this dramatic way. And so much work has been done since I left, since before I got there, but I'm so proud of the folks at the Met. Our heart goes out to everyone at all the museums, big and small, but there's so much that people can see online, and we hope that gives somebody some joy. And Nadine gives us some smiling face. I love your mask, Nadine, and you look tough. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're so grateful. Sree, you should do a monologue every day covering new news and some good news. That's a good idea, Daryl. In fact, let me tell you, tomorrow evening, we're not yet sure at the time, 7 or 9 p.m., depending on my other client work, we are going to do the first of many episodes of something I call News You Missed. There's so many news things that are happening now that are so important, but we're missing because there's all this other world headline news. So we have Bob Anthony and Vandana Menon are collecting these news items. So send them to us, and we will talk about that tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern or 9 p.m. Eastern. Please join us. We really appreciate that. And Arlene says, and the man of 5,000 ties, Daniel Kershaw, who's a senior exhibition designer at the Met. Arlene, take a photo of this and send that to him. That'll be really, really cool. And Saheli says, fantastic idea to talk about news you missed, because there's several things I missed. And so that's going to be on Tuesday. So news on Friday, it's on Tuesday, tomorrow. Today's Monday. On Tuesday, we're going to do that. And thank you very much, everybody. Look at our archives. We have great archives that I'm just going to show you very quickly so you know how to find it. People are telling me, Sree, I want to know when you're live. And the easiest way to do that is to go on to YouTube. And if you go to YouTube, Sreenet, Sreenet, if you go on there right now, you find me. And then once you find me, you can very easily find the show. And I am going to put into Facebook a link so that you can find me live and also the archived recordings, 25 straight shows. It is kind of mind-boggling that we have done that, but I've only done that because of all of you and your kindness to me and sharing all your thoughts. So please do subscribe and please do share right now everything that we are talking about. Please go to YouTube right now. Take a second, go to YouTube and you'll be able to share and know when I'm live and see the entire archives. And there's that link, bit.ly/Sree COVID-19 call, or you can just go and find the SreeneT page, and you can see my playlists, including our New York Times read-along playlists are also there. So you can view the full playlists, and you can also see, since you guys are around, let me show you something funny from my old school playlists that are here. I'm going to show you a video, if I can get it here, of something that I did. Oops, sorry, 1 second. Let me just turn that off. But I'm going to show you just a little bit of me when I think I had hair.
Ewing Township in Mercer County, as you head northbound.
That's not me. But just wait 1 minute.
That was actually built in New Jersey. You've got yourself a problem getting into between exits 5 and 7. Route 7 is exit 7 is Route 206.
So this is morning TV about 12 years ago.
You should see those drive-bys in Tenafly.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah.
Morning banter on TV. You don't see that often anymore.
Because of shows like The Jetsons, we thought that by now robots would be cooking our food, washing our laundry, even walking the dog.
Well, we have a way to go for that, but we're getting close because we have tech guru Sree Sreenivasan introducing us today to the Scuba Floor Scrubber, which I'll be your Carol Merrill when you get to that point.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You know, you've all probably heard of the Roomba, a robot vacuum cleaner.
Look at my hair, folks. I had hair.
Years ago. It goes around cleaning carpets. But iRobot, the company that made it, got lots of requests for another household chore, mopping the floors. Here's what it looks like. Let's see if we can get a shot of that. I put it to the test by showing it to my kids.
We're not going to watch the whole thing. Don't worry.
It's a robot? Is there a robot inside?
No, this is a robot itself.
But they don't have any face.
Even 3-year-olds know what a robot is supposed to look like. And they aren't supposed to look like this. Say hello to the Scuba, a floor washing robot that...
Anyway, you get the idea, folks. So that was a long time ago, back in my TV career. And I'm just really glad that you all are here with me. I benefit so much from this. Nadine asks, is there somewhere we can find out in advance when you'll be broadcasting and what the theme will be? That's the goal. You know, if I get sponsors, then I can actually plan this a lot better. Right now, I've got to deal with the things that pay the bills. But for now, the easiest thing you can do is to go onto Twitter. So if you go on Twitter, you'll be able to find on the top of my Twitter page, I'm going to post the time of my next show. So right here, I'm going to post. So as you saw here, it says Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I will try to always have the time there for you so that you have the exact time. And Sayeli says she loves those twins, and I appreciate that very much. Please do follow me on Twitter. We're trying to share useful information. The latest show, Nadine, there you are on my Twitter feed, because we're right there. And I'm trying to share useful, helpful things around what is happening, but also some fun things. Look at how television news has changed, right? This article says you needed a photographer, a sound person, an editor, and a $40,000 camera to go on television. Now you need just an iPhone, and that's sort of what I'm doing now. And this is an incredible story. Disney Animation was able to generate new Olaf short films while everyone is at home, and Josh Gad returned to voice the character from his own home. So great for kids stuck at home right now, but also a good example of how quality work can actually be done remotely. And also a plug for the Washington Post and all its great newsletters. It has more than 60 newsletters, if you can believe it, right now, that you can subscribe in 12 different categories. Okay, folks, enough from me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Please email me, sree@sree.net, SREE@SREE.net. I am so grateful to all of you. Linda says she also has a stash of Met buttons stashed away somewhere. And just very, very happy to be here with all of you. Email me. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. And I'm going to just say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much. See you.